All right, welcome to Quarantine with Lou. I'm your host and strategic partner in cost reduction, Louis Fernandez. And today we're joined by Neil Israel, founder of Sketchology, and a man with the coolest email signature. And if you have the opportunity to see that, you'll know exactly what I mean. But before we get into that, if you're a fan of inspiring people and informative content, then you come to the right place because that's all we do. So go ahead and order a cartoon sketch of yourself, clicking the like button, and send it to all your friends to show you care. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more content. And with that, Neil, we were talking right before he started recording. I told him, I was like, you got to stop because this is an amazing story. And one of the questions I want to ask people usually is, how did you get into this business? And this was amazing. So I'd love for you to go ahead and just start with that again, because
Yeah,
I'm like on the edge of my seat here.
absolutely. So about 3 years ago, I was working at a nonprofit, which is a great nonprofit, but very much set up like the United Way. So we gave money to other nonprofits in addition to doing direct services. So a lot of my time was spent writing grants, right? So I was writing a grant for, of all things, poverty alleviation, which you can't think of a more personal thing than poverty alleviation, right? So I'm on page like 26, and I'm like, we have totally stripped down anything, any feeling from this topic. It's just words on a page. I mean, it was awful. And to me, it was awful. So I went to my bosses and I said, we need to let me create something that shows the relationship, shows visually what a hero story looks like. What happens? How does an individual who is in poverty, if they receive the benefit of this grant, how do they win? And how does that nonprofit that's applying for the grant, how are they guiding the person to be a hero? So I'm not sure they were listening to all of that, but maybe to kick me out of their office, they said sure. So I did that, and I can tell you from being in the room when we did the grant review, people don't listen to a lot, but they were definitely watching the video. They were transfixed with the video. And afterwards, the grant that brought me into that job was also subsequently ending. So I said to a friend of mine who had run several businesses successfully, both nonprofit and for-profit, it's like, is this like a thing? Is this a doable business? Am I going to be in poverty myself, or like, do you think this can work? Said absolutely. So any bad luck, I'm gonna blame on him. But it's been a great ride ever since. I have worked with a lot with nonprofits. With juvenile diabetes. We just did a big project with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So I've been I'm almost 50, and not quite, but almost. And I was diagnosed when I was like 6, right? At that time, they didn't have a lot. They had like insulin, like just that. And now they have insulin pumps and continuous glucose monitor combinations, which is very close to an artificial pancreas, right? So I worked with the doctor and with the JDRF to create a tutorial, a 3-series tutorial to train, or to inform is probably a better way to say, teenagers and their parents, a lot of them are at that bubble, to say, what do you need to know about what's available now? Because there is better available. And we did it. We launched it with Texas, the Texas branch, but we're going to take it nationally. I was probably next week. Awesome. So that'll be that's exciting. So we really like working with nonprofits and also for-profits. It's interesting that you said that about the, I think we're going to be competitors pretty soon, because not with cost reduction, but with, because one of the things that we're going to do, because it is similar, it takes a similar skill, is do personal branding.
Mhm.
So we're going to have packages that include the sketch and some videos. So I just thought that was interesting that you said that.
Well, it was cool. I mean, I opened up the thing and I was like, wait, is his signature moving? That's awesome. You know?
So do you do it? Who does the oh, were you saying that
Yours.
oh, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
thought you were, thank you so much. Please, yes, please do that.
I was
Twice
talking
on
about,
Sunday. Hey,
yeah.
today. So I didn't have my head in the game on that. Yeah,
Well,
so
just
that's what we've kind of we for the last 2 years we've done. I mean, the funny thing is, so in that nonprofit, I made a lot of friends with nonprofits because I was paying them. In my role as a program manager, giving money to nonprofits. So we got started with nonprofits as our clients. But you never, I don't think, I mean, there's some general things that you can kind of keep in mind. Obviously, from a business model perspective, this from, cost analysis, nonprofits in general are going to be less likely to have money,
right,
because that's their model.
yeah.
But at the same time, when they're trying to do big things, they can have the resources to do it. So it's exciting.
I think it's cool, like just how much passion there is from you about what you're doing, and how, the two stories you've told have both been about like helping somebody else. And through doing that, your own personal experience in your fight with diabetes, like, I can do this, I can help these other people. And then, writing this grant and saying, I know that, these are just words on a page. We're trying to have an effect, so I can do this. And, like, that is exactly why I wanted to do this. And
Yeah.
for people to hear, like, there is heart behind so many of the products and the experiences, and whatever you're going through every day that you spend a little bit of money on, there's a passion behind there, and there's a heart behind there, and there's a lot that goes into that product beyond just the good or service. And I think it's really neat hearing you say it.
I thank you for saying that. It's funny. I spent 2 decades in the corporate world. I was at Sprint for 20 years.
Okay.
And well, or in HR math, 17, if it's 17 years and 11 months. They round down.
Okay.
So when early on in my career, they were pushing work from home because, of course, if they can buy less buildings,
right,
that's less expensive.
Yeah.
And but it didn't really catch on for, like, for managerial reasons of command and control type. I think that maybe the one good thing, I'm sure there've been some others, but one of the good things that has come from COVID is we're not going back. I mean, that just like you said, this is a better, because IT has improved, right? You couldn't do this when we were doing it. Like when we were first doing it, technology sucked. Yes. So we just you just couldn't do it.
Well, even 5 years ago.
Hey, yeah. And God, 5G is, I mean, the possibilities with 5G are just amazing. So I think that it's just convergence of so many things. But I agree that there's nothing. Okay, so one of the things that is important to us is learning, right? Like how people learn. Yeah. And one of the stories are especially effective with learning for a couple of different reasons. One, because it speaks to, for lack of a better word, people that learn by seeing, by hearing, by writing, and if you do the problems right, by feeling, right? But the other thing is people put themselves in a story that you're
Right.
telling, always,
Yeah.
right? And there's actually brain chemistry. Your brain chemistry changes.
Really?
There's something called oxytocin that's created when
Yeah.
you're watching stories that's leads you to act more, leads you to want to act more, what's the not democratically is not the right way. It's like help. I mean, just for lack of a better word, help. Um,
Altruistic.
but I mean, it's amazing. This is something that I've only known for like maybe 20 years. The guy that did the research, his name is Paul Zach, and actually I'm connected with him on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I was like, there's no chance he's gonna accept it because like this is a super famous guy. I mean, to me again, but he did. So I mean, I just think that there's something there. It's the other thing about animation. I do agree that there's something about actually seeing a person or seeing a live event. But the thing about animation is the power to exaggerate,
Hmm.
which I'll give you a perfect example. So what we're doing, one of the projects that I've got right now is for a group that basically runs many of the shelters for battered women in Texas, right? So we did not a story, but a project to show how the trauma of choking, what that looks like on a victim to police officers. So they can see very detailed visuals that are animated and not through without having to do like have it real video.
Yeah.
Like just there's so much that you can do that to drive home a point if without showing the actual thing. That I mean, in that case, they made a it's almost it's a stand-in, for lack of a better word.
Mm.
But I think like with and going back to like Bugs Bunny and the Acme bomb, right? Like there's just stuff that you can do that sort of quickly makes a point that you can do through exaggeration that you just can't do if you're using like video, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Man, just like every project you mentioned just tugs at the heart, dude. Like,
we are also capitalists, so please send money. I'm trying to think. One, honestly, there is right now. Well, there's a guy that we're entering into a partnership with, I believe, he's got like multiple businesses. So that's going to be our first like foray into like multi-level, not multi-level marketing, but see what I want to do with that. I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Is I think we center it around personal branding, but then like with the images of cartoon versions of the God, I can't think of his name. Okay, you're gonna have to cut that part.
This is real though, man. This is you. This is who you are. It's all good.
It's Mike and Katie Catwell, or Michael and Katie Catwell.
Okay.
So they own a bunch of business. I mean, they like have more energy than any 15 normal people, right? And they have like tons of businesses, right?
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, okay, so the centerpiece is really good animated illustrations of them. And then we maybe even, if I can get them to, if they like this idea, 3D.
Yeah.
And then from there, we do videos that support each one of their businesses, or we do it as we go, like as they like them. So I think that that's going to be fun to play with. We're I don't know if you saw this, but I mentioned on the website that this once that we're know each other from. There's a guy that is joining our team that is, he's a genius. He's a flat. Just I don't. Sorry, Aaron. I don't understand what you're saying quite a bit of the time. My wife does, I think. But he would laugh about that, I hope. But Aaron is helping us with the Azure Connect camera, which is from video games, right? To actually do AI driven animation.
That's awesome.
Right. So yeah, like I'm really excited about that. Like,
yeah.
I feel like if we can do 3D imaging and do it relatively inexpensively, then we've got something there. I think it's exciting.
So you told me a little bit about like having that idea for the animation when you're doing that grant request. But are you like a artist by trade? You know,
Okay.
like if someone told me like, oh, an animation is a great idea, what I do is I find somebody like you. Like, there's no way in my mind where I think
bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always like, in full disclosure, I can't draw circles. So I'm not the guy to actually do the animation in the beginning. Not the beginning of time, but in that like 3 years, 2.5 years ago, that was my wife. She is a very good illustrator. I mean, she's an artist for her life.
Okay.
But she's new to animation though. So it was early on animation, right? So, and we were using a tool that for somebody that's never been exposed to animation, tools like Toonly or Doodly can be a lot of fun, right? But it gets you to a certain point. And she was even with that. I mean, she was creating the character. I mean, she was hand drawing the characters. So, but today she focuses more on. I mean, she does spend a lot of time with the business because she's definitely the creative eye of the business, and she does like all of our landing pages and that kind of thing. But for the actual animation and illustration, I work with a lot of different people actually, throughout the world. Actually,
so you sound. I'm also a program manager by trade, and hearing you sound like a program manager, right? This is how we think, right? It's like, I'm going to outsource. I have a team of 16 different individuals. This guy does design, and there's my supply management, and here's my marketing guy, and here's my, and
you're absolutely right. I about 20 years, not 20, 15 years ago, I took the PMP, right? And I passed, and I went to my VP, and I'm like, Jim, there's literally no chance we're ever going to get buried in the bureaucracy of the PMI paperwork. That's not going to happen. But what was really good about the PMP was it helped me think differently.
Yeah.
It helped me attack problems differently, like very systemically, kind of like you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's it's been a benefit to me in every aspect of my life.
When I
For
entered
sure.
the PMP, I was working for John Deere as a program manager. I
Okay.
had 6 different programs, 90 people that I was giving work direction to, and a total budget was over $20 million. I
Nice.
used maybe 5% of the stuff that they have.
Yeah. And you were at the high end. You're like the
Yeah.
outlier. Most people take the test and never open the book again.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah. I mean, there, like you said, thinking about things differently, understanding how much stuff we can track, and there's an effectiveness level. But I think for me, I have more of an open hand approach when it comes to leadership, uh,
Yeah.
and uh, if you wanted to, you could mire yourself down in tasks and keep yourself
Yeah.
extremely busy managing everything to report on. I chose to maybe take on a little bit more risk, trust some more people to get their work done, and
Yeah.
have fewer check-ins.
Yeah. And I think that the great thing is that a lot of things are much more automated now.
Mm-hmm.
And a PMI, what I kept up with it up until I've been doing videos for the last for the last 2 years. There have been so many wide changes.
Mm.
Like, I mean, think about like when you and I were doing it, people were using this horrible monstrosity known as Microsoft Project.
Yeah, I was going to say MS Project.
Yeah, that no one should ever use, and was only, I'm convinced, was only, I mean, like in the worthless ways for Microsoft to raise $500 every, per unit. That's it.
Yeah.
And then let's find a way to irritate executives so they can't actually read the update that they're given because it prints on 73 pages. That's what we'll do. I mean, and I don't even know if it's better today. Like, there's so many things that Microsoft's great at. That's not one of them.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I did not. I tried to use it a couple times and said, "No, I can work this out on my own."
So, did you keep up the PMP at all?
I think I have some. I don't know if I expired this past year or expired this upcoming year. I probably have to put some of those CEUs in there so I don't lose it. But I don't know.
I'm
if
in
I
the
want
same
to.
boat. Let's look together. Let's see if we can find anything. Maybe we can put on project management classes for BizFluence.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'll wind up having to write a check for the state of Texas, even if nobody pays.
Oh, really? And do a little explainer video.
I won't, but.
So you're currently in Texas. You mentioned when we were talking before that you used to live in Kansas. Is that where you're from? Kansas originally?
Yeah, I was born in Kansas.
Your family?
Yeah, and I was I'm from a city though. I mean, I'm from a very suburban area. So I mean, like Kansas, Dallas, Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, Minneapolis, Minnesota. The weather is the main difference.
Yes. So I used to live in Ottumwa, Iowa. I don't know if have you heard of Ottumwa, Iowa?
What Iowa?
Ottumwa. It's a town of 30,000 people, about an hour and a half south of Des Moines. So we were within an hour or so of the Kansas border.
Okay.
And a little John Deere factory out there in Ottumwa. So when you talk about the weather, like my bones still hurt from the cold, and hearing you mention that.
Yeah. You brought my brain to something else. So I for like a year, because I'm crazy, a friend of mine wanted to do wind energy. He's affluent, so he can have those kind of crazy ideas. I'm not, so I probably should have said have fun, but I didn't. I said, let's do this together. So I was going to meet with a company that was in Minnesota, in just outside of Minneapolis. my car was like, I actually borrowed my mom's or their car because it was really cool. Like um, the weather and the temperature was right there. It's like -9 degrees.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I just gotta be blunt. I'm like, my these people don't know me from Adam, but I'm like, I just gotta ask, why are you here? Like, if you could put your company anywhere, why here? I should not be freezing. So they're like, 3M is just down the street. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
All right.
So, but I don't know. So I really liked your question about what do people not know,
Yeah.
and people used to actually, I'm going to pull it backwards. So speaking of San Francisco, um, up until I was about 25, my plan was to go to Berkeley and become a sociologist,
Really.
and teach. And I still love academic. I love the academy. I love academic discussions, and which is like what led me to get the PMP, right? Like something where you're applying in one way or another science, basically. Um, so that's something that people I hung out with used to know, but it's been some time.
So what happened at 25? Why did that dream go away?
Actually, that's kind of a funny story. So I was I went to not private. It wasn't a private school, but I went to a school called New College in Florida, and it it was uh, it was a public, what was called a public Ivy. It was one of the public Ivies, and but the instructors were paid shit. I mean, sorry, I hope I can say that. Um,
I don't know.
yeah, the FCC is probably not coming, or no, whoever. Um, so they don't get paid anything, right? My advisor had gone, oh Jesus, he's okay. Somebody might have gone to Harvard to get his PhD, right? So I'm thinking he probably spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to get his PhD, and was making not that as a I mean, the guy's a genius. So then I fast forward, I'm working at Sprint in a very entry level sales job, and I was a terrible salesman. I'm a bad salesperson. That's a problem I'm having today. So how I went on to a, like an almost 20-year career is funny that I started there, but I was like, wait a second. I'm like, and it shouldn't all be about the money, but I was like, wait, I'm like making as much now as he was making then. Do I want to go down this path? Because I mean, sure, there are sociologists that write books and they make a ton of money. And of the, 10,000 sociologists, whatever, in the country, there's like 4 of them that do that. So the odds are not in the favor. So of course, it would have been amazing. I mean, would have been amazing. And I still love reading the stuff. One other thing is, and just to kind of take one little bit of a step back, the sociology got further and further from quote unquote reality, in the sense that, and this is something a sociologist who's I think he was the head of the ASA at the time, was saying there are major events that are happening and no one's asking our opinion. And it wasn't it wasn't for an ego thing. It wasn't because he wanted to pull himself up. It was just like, we're in an insular world that is concerned about things that isn't what's happening. So I thought that was very interesting, and I wanted to talk about the things that are happening. So I guess in a way, making videos about for organizations that are doing stuff is
Yeah, see, it's interesting. Like you've kind of taken a path that's tangentially related, right? So you're still doing education. You're still, I mean, just hearing you talk, you're talking about all these issues, all these social issues and programs and organizations. This is who you've latched onto to start and get your business going. And so, you know, um, yeah, you're not in Berkeley, but you very much are doing very similar work. At least the passion,
no, I like that.
Is still there.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I like that.
I wonder if your bookshelf is similar to mine, where it's mostly nonfiction.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I actually love. It's funny. I think that Jack Welch, Jack Welch the former chairman of GE,
yes,
who basically introduced fire one out of every 10 people, right? Like, I mean, he was the first one to do that in the like early 80s, in the 80s at some point.
Yeah.
And like, so there's something in my gut strongly dislikes him.
Yeah.
But his book is so good.
Really?
Yeah, it's straight from the gut. And the thing is, what he defends well is the fact that if you have an organization that is based on candor, if people can have real conversations, it's better that they know if it's a bad fit. And it's better if people move on quicker because they'll find jobs faster, right? Sprint.
Yeah, the problem is the problem is when you set that actual like hard limit. Like, I may have a team of 10 good people, right? I don't want to fire anybody. I should be able to make that decision as well. Right?
I agree. I agree. There's got to be flexibility. It's got to be at a higher level where I just think that what can go tragically bad is and it doesn't exist anymore, so I can say, when organizations that are not candid cultures try to, like, we didn't have that and tried to implement it, and people were shocked. Yeah. They're like, what do you mean I'm not an excellent performer? Yeah. I thought I was. You always told me I was. Of course they're going to be surprised. So, I mean, there was a huge lawsuit and all this kind of craziness. But sorry to kind of move off of your question. I love business books. Business books and murder stories. So I don't know what exactly that. If I can find a confluence somewhere, then that's the.
No, I don't know. That's your sociology guy, right? Like it's the functions of society and how these aberrations and anomalies occur within the human psyche that drive people to perform activities and actions that seem so out of the normalcy. That's the kind of the data points that always get our attention too, right? So even as a program manager, you may look at a series of data points and there's one that's way out here. Right. It's going to get your attention. You wonder what's going on with that one. And I feel like, to me, that's just, I'm interested in that kind of topics and behavior as well. That criminal behavior catches my attention, like, oh, what's this anomaly right here? Yeah. What's going on with that?
Yeah. And it's funny. It kind of goes back to the nature nurture, because if you think about what society, I mean, I believe in evil. I do. I believe there are evil people in the world. That said, I think about some things and I'm like, no one chooses to want to do that. Like there has to be, I think that I don't know if we'll ever figure it out because we don't want to, but I feel like our DNA, our biological makeup drives, of course there's always human will, but I do think that we are not so much predestined, but we're slanted in certain ways. I mean, we just are.
Yeah.
It's that person that's on the, or is okay murder. Like it's just a day in the. It reminds me of Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong, without even like breaking a sweat, was like what totally like bald-faced lie.
Yeah.
To so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a stone cold sociopath. Right? As good as the body is, the mind is broken.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, you don't see that. I mean, most people would break into that. They could not. That's interesting. Anyway.
So your business is relatively young. I heard you mention in there the last few years that you.
It is, yeah. We're about 2 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, and the second year was in COVID.
That's
so
what I was gonna say. Like, so how did what? Oh my God! Your
family helps.
So how did what did you have to do? Like, what did you have to pivot? How did you survive last year?
Well, one of like we happened to be in business with some industries that weren't as effective. Like credit unions did great because everybody wanted their money in more protected areas, right?
Yeah.
So one of our earliest customers is a great credit union here in Irving, Texas. Well, they're actually throughout Texas, but that's one of them. The other is because our business is all virtual, right? Like that, my one customer that is in Texas is Mobility Credit Union. Everybody else is throughout the world.
Okay.
Or not really. I guess customer is not really worldwide and national, but
sure. So
it's just trying to be agile and also I think adaptation is the key to everything. I mean, to me, that's who. It's not the strong that survives. It's the ones that can adapt that survive.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When I went to Ranger School, there was a joke with the instructors, and they said there's two types of Rangers. There's strong Rangers and there's smart Rangers, and you're gonna make a choice. Which one are you gonna be today? Because if you ain't gonna be smart, you better be strong, right? If you're gonna be stupid, you're gonna get strong, or you ain't gonna make it.
Yeah. How long were you in the service?
I was in for about 7 years. Oh.
I'm sure you get asked stuff like this all the time, but you didn't know a guy named Ray Tucker, did you?
I don't know. No, I mean, it's
little black guy. I mean, not little. He's not little, but he's short. It's like me. He's short.
No. Yeah. There's I think 500,000 people in the Army, and I haven't been in for a while now. So
yeah,
I got out in 2012.
I need to. I should introduce you to. I serve on a board, I guess. A friend of mine started a company called a nonprofit called Vets What's Next. He's a retired major in the United States Army.
Okay.
And It's been his passion project for a long, long time. I was doing a lot for him, but then I really wanted to focus on Sketchology, so I couldn't really do that.
Yeah.
But he's a great guy. He'd be a really good resource.
Sure. I think I saw, is he the one that's on your website there?
Probably, yeah.
Testimonial, yeah.
Yeah. He's one of the testimonials. Eric goes, and I didn't say this to him, but I will. I love Eric's testimonial because about a minute into it, he goes into business for himself, which is awesome. Like, it's like, yeah, Sketchology is great because they supported me. Just kidding, my very good friend.
So, what kind of company? We talked a lot about nonprofits. You know, those are the people you're serving now. You also kind of mentioned that you're trying to branch out into other companies, other organizations. So somebody listening to this, what kind of company would be an ideal client for you, and what should they, how can they best utilize your company?
That's a great question. So we're going in a couple, almost going in a couple different directions. So if you put personal branding aside, because that's really taking some innate skill that we have and just putting it to use, because lots and lots of people are doing that. The customers that I really want to help are organizations that want to train, whether it's internally or externally, and it can be through school books or school videos or like the JDRF video. It's very similar to in business a concept called micro learning, right? Which is learning that you're given in bits and pieces to reinforce the macro training that you've gotten. It seems to me that animation is a perfect micro learning element to support education, whether it's through introducing chapters or closing chapters and explaining what you just saw, or telling stories that hit the highlights.
Yeah.
That's I think one of our very, very big plays, and that can be really for profit or nonprofit, because like obviously the JBRF is nonprofit, but AT&T or an organization like that is still has internal training where they're trying to teach their own employees, or external training where they're trying to inform the public.
Would you, do you see people using this stuff for commercials or for their own marketing, that kind of stuff? Or is it more like internal type communication?
No, definitely. I think that it could definitely be used, especially with the stuff that we have going on with AI, because our capabilities, both from a production like speed of production perspective, because what this Azure Connect camera can do is, so you take pictures and it records data of the movements, and basically the artist is helping the camera, for lack of a better way to say it, with the models, but then it can reproduce models. Not the camera itself so much as programs built for the camera can create models that enable us to be able to show a client a ton of options that look awesome in a short amount of time. So
do you guys write the scripts as well?
I write that. So that's the one thing I was going to say. So I'm sorry, I totally got off that point. So I can't draw my own name, but I write the scripts.
Okay.
So unless the customer wants to write it themselves, obviously, and then that has been the case before as well. I mean, I love helping people find their story, and people love finding their own story.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that there's a true joy, like the lights shine when you have a realization that, you know, it's hard to look at your own life, you know. You're too busy living it to see what's happening.
Yeah.
But
So, okay. So if I want to do educational content, or if I want to do marketing content, you're definitely the guy to talk to. And then if I want to write my script, I can do that. You help with the writing of scripts as well. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and, you know, talk about how to use your service, how would they go? How do you prefer them to find you?
so the best way to do now we're making this better, but the best way to do it is if you're on LinkedIn, you can direct message me, or you can always call me at 913-912-0138, or Neil, Neil, at Sketchology, and that's sketch like drawn, then biology without the BI, .io, which stands for Indian Ocean, in case, which I thought was kind of cool. So it's Neil at Sketchology.io, and I always respond to stuff quickly. And also, you know, schedule. You know, we can talk about your story, and I love to help people. Like I said, think about help them kind of, if they have kind of an idea. I love helping to kind of facilitate that, because it's always fun. It's fun for the person.
I can hear that from you, and I can hear the passion that you have, and you know, somebody that you seem to have a lot of empathy for others, and that's a particularly important skill in the line of work that you're in. And
Yeah.
understanding that and being able to
Thank you.
empathize to be able to create a message for someone, which I think is really cool.
I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, awesome. Any parting words for the observer or listener? Maybe there's more.
Please reach out to me. Enjoy your life. I don't know.
Yeah.
There are things that I'm thinking of that I probably shouldn't say.
Put you on the spot. Awesome. Well,
You ever see that? I should say this one. So Seth Rogen got asked that question.
Oh, really?
And he said, the Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I could see why you stumbled there, because that would cost me as well. And I'd say if you probably agree with me, Neil, if they've made it this far, I think we deserve at least a like, and potentially a subscribe to the podcast. So I would appreciate that very much. And thank you all for tuning in. And thanks, Neil, for coming.
Thanks, everybody.